This one's for the discouraged, questioning, and wondering, why the heck am I doing this? My name is Michelle Kline. I am the founder of Dogco Launch and the host of Dogco Secrets, where I share insights, inspirations, lessons learned from my time, both as a business owner in the pet care industry and now as a coach consultant, helping companies focus on growing and scaling their business. And today, this is going to be for the people who are struggling with, can I do this? Maybe I can't. Maybe I'm letting myself down. Maybe I'm going to fail. People that are feeling kind of stuck in the rumbling of entrepreneurship and of what it takes to get to the next level and how vulnerable that is and how much it challenges you, both professionally, but also mostly personally, because there is very little I have learned more from than entrepreneurship. So this one's a little vulnerable because I am also in a big season of growth for my business where it's hard and I'm learning a lot and it's amazing and I wouldn't do anything else different. I am kind of right in the trenches of this as well. So I am not only speaking to you today, I am speaking pretty heavily to me as well. And I am just going to cheerlead us a little bit with also a little bit of just a reality check of what it means to be in entrepreneurship and how it is going to be hard. And I think we can hold both of those tensions well together, both this belief of, yes, I can do this, with also, we have to expect it to be hard because otherwise, cliche, but everyone would be doing it. So, yeah, really kicking around this idea of what to do when you're feeling self-doubt and pain of failure that maybe hasn't even happened yet. Brene Brown calls this foreboding joy, where, even when I do this, at least, even when something is going well, I start pre-anticipating it failing, where maybe I had success in the past and I feel like I either have to hold onto it really, really tightly because it's like, man, I don't know if I could ever replicate that success again. It's like I formed these beliefs that was a one-time, like moonshot success that I could never replicate again. Versus sometimes I feel like if I have success, it's like that can't be real. I should like back away from that rather than fully stepping into it. And I've noticed that for me, self-doubt and imposter syndrome oftentimes is not actually tied to success or failure. It's actually tied to me and beliefs that I have formed about myself and about my work and about my likelihood and probability of success. So, like I said, today we're going to do a little bit of a pep talk because if you're struggling with self-doubt, insecurity, fear of failure, this one is for you today. I had a client come to a coaching call recently where she said, I just want to be upfront with you. I'm not here for strategy. I'm here for a pep talk. So, got me thinking that maybe others would benefit from this as well. Because I do think sometimes we just need someone to look us in the eye and to say, it's going to be okay. You can figure this out. You can do this. So take this as your encouragement for that today. So your previous success is the proof that not only have you done it before, but you have the skills to do it again. Now, because I've worked with so many companies, I know that you may already be rushing to discredit what I said with, well, things were different before. Maybe it was pre-pandemic. Maybe there was less competition in your market. Maybe your service area has shifted a lot, or you have different people on your team, or, something's happened in your personal life that has made running the business or changed it in some way, shape, or form. I'm less interested in the specificity of the success that you had before. Not that it doesn't matter. But I'm more so interested and want to validate that at one point in time, there was something you did not know how to do. And you bridged the gap between, I don't know how to do it and I have figured it out, and demonstrated that you have the skill set to create that pathway for yourself and walk down it successfully. The very specific skills and the very specific situations come and go. But what I want you to have a belief shift around, if you are struggling with this idea of, I don't know if I can do that again, is what was so significant about whatever you did before that was successful. is not the very unique situation that you did it within, because all of that is outside of our control. We can't control the economy. We can't control our service area. We can try to control our team, but to a great extent, we also can't do that as well. We can train them, but we can't control them. But what we can control is the dedication, determination, and strategy that we apply internally within our own businesses, regardless of the context. And you have already demonstrated that you can do that. You once had the conviction to get through the suck of figuring it out. And it does suck. It is not fun to be in a season of unknown or a season where you're trying to level up. It tends to be an incredible story on the back end. I did this hard, scary thing, and then people just see the story. They don't see all of the middle, like anxiety and grind and late nights and all of the things that it took to manifest that picture. But you do. You know what it's like to go through that season and to come out on the other side, to survive it and to be successful through it. And if you have found that conviction before, you do have a demonstrated history that you can find it again. I mentioned this was going to be a bit of a vulnerable episode. So, a personal story for me on this. I was actually engaged before I met my current husband, my only husband, but the man that I did end up marrying. And that engagement fell apart very publicly and very dramatically 6 weeks before I was supposed to get married. And it was very painful. And I had, a lot of the resolutions of, I'll never date again. Thankfully, I got over that. But when I did start to date again, I realized that there was a pathway mentally and a belief system that I could pick from that experience. I could either form a lot of fear and really approach this new season in my life of like, man, I know how bad this can get. Like, I could sit in this fear and sit in this place of anxiety of like, what if? Or I could choose to look at that former season and form the belief of I've done really, really, really hard things before. And if I have to, I can do that again. I chose the second one and feel all the better for it. But oftentimes, whenever we are doing something hard, vulnerable, scary, that actually is the split pathway, I believe, of the beliefs that we form that either are more out of resistance and more out of fear and from a place of more scarcity and self-protection, or beliefs that form out of a place of self-trust and a place of self-belief and of a place of, I know I can figure it out, which you can. If you are a business owner, you are a strategic person. And so developing that trust, you can figure whatever it is out, is more important than any other contextual situation, competitor that's come on the scene for your business, whatever it may be. It's not uncommon that I have a client have a moment with me where they say, do you think I can do this? And my answer is yes, but that does not matter. My belief about you will not, it may make you feel good in this moment, and I hope that it does. I am here to be a cheerleader and a support and to encourage you forward. And I will say, I work with a lot of badasses, so my belief is high in your success. Are you a pet care professional that wants to scale your business in 2025? I'm so excited to tell you about the Dogco Business Summit, a conference dedicated exclusively to scaling pet care businesses, which will be in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, September 26th through the 28th. If you are looking to scale your pet care business this year, this is the conference for you. I have pulled together the very best people I can find to help inform our industry, to educate our industry, and to help businesses get to the next level. With speakers like Jamie Troll and Joey Coleman, you are sure to take home really actionable information to put into your pet care business to help you grow. Tickets are on sale now at dogcosummit.com. Get yours before it's gone. However, you forming the success that you can do this and choosing that belief is what matters here. So I think you need to ask yourself that question. Do you believe you can do it? Because your conviction matters more than mine. I have come to believe that success is more about your ability to endure discomfort and pain than acquiring immediate success or perfection in whatever it is that you are trying to do. We'd like to believe we do a lot of things as humans to protect ourselves from pain and discomfort. And I have found that most things worth doing that I have done in my life, and again, this is me really speaking to myself right now of like, you need to sit in this and you need to form your own belief structure around it. That typically what lies on the other side of that pain and discomfort is the success that I am looking for. And so choosing to not fight it, choosing to not self-protect away from it, but to lean in, to really explore what it takes to get where I want to go through the other side, expecting that it will be painful and it will be uncomfortable. I think oftentimes that is actually the experience of pain that we have is some mismatched expectation that it's not going to be hard. And I have found the further I get into entrepreneurship, the more I expect it to be hard, the more that it tends to actually feel less so that way because I expected it. So knowing that pain and discomfort are part of the path. And knowing that what gets you through is conviction and follow through, and choosing to stay on that path even though it does not feel good. Entrepreneurship, I have found, is rarely an expense or on a day-to-day basis of feeling good, and more so feeling conviction or aiming to feel conviction that you're on the right path forward. Layla Hermosi, I was listening to a podcast of hers this morning, and she's brilliant. If you don't listen to her podcast, it's called Build with Layla. And she was talking about how there are very few things she does on a day-to-day basis that she genuinely enjoys, but she only does things that are in service of the long-term gain and direction that she wants to go. And I don't think that we should be in a season like that for forever, but I do think that oftentimes when we are wanting to go from point A to point B, and point B requires like we are really having to get on that next level, we're having to really elevate ourselves, our mindset, our skill set, our talents, whatever it may be, pain and discomfort, and the ability to do things on a daily basis that are in service of the longer plan are needed and essential. I was reflecting on putting together content for this podcast, and I was realizing that so I've been working in the industry for a couple years now. I've been really, really fortunate to have not only amazing clients that have found me or that I have attracted that I have been working with, but people that I've been able to work with for sequential years in a row, quite a few companies, in fact. And I was reflecting on these relationships and how I don't think I have ever had someone describe working with me as fun. I've heard them describe it as hard but worth it. I've also heard people talk about how it kicked their ass, but they grew. And it always makes me chuckle. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see I'm smiling pretty big because, man, I just believe that is entrepreneurship. I don't believe it is fun most of the time. I think there are moments of fun, especially in contexts where you find your people and you do kind of get that sense of coming, like your head breaking above the waves, where it's like, okay, I can take a breath, I can catch my breath, I can see where this is headed. But a lot of the time, it's kind of like fighting to get above water, at least in the beginning when the business is younger and newer. And so I really love hearing that and take it as a measure of success almost, that no one has ever described me as like fun as a coach consultant, because I really believe that it is my job to show up in a really authentic way, not only to show my own experience of entrepreneurship, which I love more than anything I've ever done, and would not describe it as fun. Like, that is not the primary thing that I feel when I think about my business. I think about meaningful, purposeful. I'm passionate about it. Virtually all my time and energy goes into either thinking about how to make it better or trying to make it better. But that is not fun. And I think deconstructing that belief has been really helpful for me, at least personally, as I have grown, that I should expect it to be. Alex Ramosi talks about, I cannot lose if I do not quit. And that is something I tell myself on days or weeks that it just feels like whatever it is not working. I think so often in business or just life generally, we want this immediate gratification. And again, this is me speaking to myself because, of course we want that. We want the dopamine hit. We want that immediate feedback loop of yes, this is going to work. We don't have that clarity a lot of the time. It may not work. And sometimes the feedback loop is really long. And also sometimes we've like poorly identified what it would mean, quote unquote, to work. And so we have expectations that, are really out of alignment. But I really identify with this quote because it's this idea of if I can stay in it long enough to figure it out, I can get there in the end. And sometimes I think it is more about figuring out how to endure than figuring out how to win in the short term. But bringing us back to some very specific encouragement for companies listening to this, pet business owners or business owners generally listening to this. Your success, not an accident, and your failures, only data. If you are, very specifically, I want to speak to, if you are struggling with post-pandemic growth in your business, maybe your business was much bigger during the pandemic and then it has struggled to rebuild, that does not mean you will not recover. The timeline may not be what we wanted or anticipated, but you cannot lose if you do not quit. If you stay in this long enough with the conviction to figure it out, and the follow through to show up every single day with a commitment to doing that, you will get there. It may not be on the timeline or time frame that we want or expect, but you will get there. There is going to be a lot out of your control. I think that just is the reality that we have to accept and deal with and focus on what is. If you are struggling with focusing too much on your competitors or maybe hyper-focusing on what is or isn't happening in the economy right now. I'm not saying we live in a place with our head under a rock where we're not connected, but I am saying that if you sense your energy, your emotional energy, really going to either of those places, we need to bring that back in on what is within your control regardless of the circumstances. The circumstances will always change. Robert Strickland is an amazing leader in the industry who I respect very much, and I really appreciate his demeanor around conversations of what's happening in the economy or not happening, because they're both very realistic of just talking about what we see while also, he's owned his business for a long time. He's been through the housing crash and the different elections and turnovers. And, I think it's such an indication when we see these long-standing businesses that have weathered so many different seasons. Everything is figure outable if we apply enough conviction and follow through. And it will be hard. And both of those things will be true. So, I think the main question is, do you want whatever that thing is for the pain and discomfort to be worth it and for the required amount of conviction and follow through that it will take to succeed? And just so you know, if your answer is no, that is such a good answer. That is just as good as yes. I'm always incredibly proud of companies that choose a thoughtful no when they decide this is not for them. But I think we have to give ourselves the willingness to choose yes or no. And once we do, to be all in either way. When we have one foot on either side, I've found that that is actually the hardest place for business owners to be when we work together, is when they aren't sure of the conviction of which way they want to go. And there's a lot of circling and a lot of unsurety and a lot more anxiety. I've actually found that it's preferable to pick a direction, yes or no, and to source the conviction to follow through on whatever that decision was than to sit in a place of ambiguity. So giving ourselves the clarity and the benefit of a clear yes or a clear no, of do we want it badly enough for the pain and the discomfort and for the conviction and follow through it will take? Another way to phrase that, are you willing to trade or sacrifice what it will take to get it? Knowing that we don't know the timeline. Committing to that trade-in, that sacrifice, it may be 6 months, it may be 2 years, it may be 5. And am I willing to endure in an undefined, unspecified amount of time to get where I want to go? So in summary, you fluffing got this. If you choose to, it is going to be hard. And I do think that at the end of the day, it is incredibly worth it. I know for me it has been. I know for me being a business owner is one of the greatest decisions that I have ever made. And it's one that I'm really thankful every day I did, even though sometimes it is really hard and both things can be true. It can be good and hard at the same time. All right, my friends, you got this.